Welcome back, CUBE community, to Black Hat 2025 at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm Jackie McGuire, your practice lead, principal analyst, and favorite security host. And I am thrilled today to be joined by Nicholas DiCola. He's the VP of Customers at Zero Networks. And Israel Bryski, he is the Chief Information Security Officer at MIO Partners. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome.
Pleasure to be here.
Great. We are going to talk about microsegmentation today. So I've worked with you guys a little bit, so I know what microsegmentation is, but I figured it might be good to start with, you guys can give us a little bit of an intro and background on you, and then we're going to launch right into what microsegmentation is for anybody who's not familiar with it. So who wants to start? Should we start with Nicholas?
Sure.
Tell us who you are, what you do, and how you ended up at Zero Networks.
Oh, how I ended up at Zero Networks is a funny story. But I'm Nicholas DiCola, the VP of Customers here at Zero Networks. And I was at Microsoft for 15 years prior to that, working on various cloud security products. And I kept seeing lots and lots of detection and not enough prevention. And Benny, who's the CEO and co-founder of Zero Networks, called me and said, "You need to come join my company." And he showed me and I said, "Holy shit, this is the iPhone of cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I must go work on this thing. I must go help make this successful." And that's how I joined Zero Networks 3.5 years ago.
That's awesome. All right, Israel, how did you get to your role as Chief Information Security Officer?
So I was recruited to MIO to lead centralize the security function and build out a security program. $30 billion hedge fund headquartered in New York City. And I manage all aspects of the security program.
Awesome. That sounds like a very low stress job.
Very low stress.
All right, so let's start with an overview of what microsegmentation is. You're probably the best person to start with this, Nicholas. So give us a kind of very high level overview of the theory behind microsegmentation.
Yeah, ultimately networks are too open. And the way to microsegment them is basically turn a firewall on every host in the network. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, you can't go buy a Palo Alto or a Fortinet and put it in front of every asset in the network. Mm-hmm. So you want to use the native controls. But it's start with the zero trust model of block everything first and only allow what you need, right? So every asset has a bubble around it, only allowing the few things that you need inbound to it.
Yeah. And Israel, how does this kind of play out in your organization in terms of how you think about containing risk?
So we were concerned, as most organizations in various industry verticals, concerned about ransomware, and that was sort of our driver into looking into microsegmentation. And one of that's actually the best way of preventing, truth is, any wormable malware, not just ransomware. And we got introduced to Zero Networks, and we loved what they did, and that was our start of our journey of microsegmentation.
Yeah, and it tends to be something that people kind of consider a fairly complex thing. Zero trust in general, I always say, is like it's not a software, it's not a vendor, it's this whole like journey and this like evolving process. And I think microsegmentation, it sounds overwhelming because if I have to go through and make these little micro environments. So did you feel like it was a very complex thing to undertake?
I would say, the truth is that was one of the reasons why we never looked into this segment of the market, mm-hmm. for that reason. And we started poking around different vendors, and we got introduced to Zero and started looking at their technology stack and how they thought about the deployment. And then we actually did a POC, and we were surprised at how easy it was. To Nick's point about using the native controls already on your endpoints, it was just really, really, really simple to deploy. And then we had Nick and Ken, two guys supported us along the way during the POC. It was fantastic. Yeah,
the people at Zero have all been pretty high quality that I've met, and that it actually makes a big difference, I think, when you're working with a vendor, if you actually like the people you have to work with. And I think it makes it easier to be more honest with them, so I imagine that when you're easy to work with, you get better product feedback too. So let's talk about, you manage a ton of money, right? You're protecting an insane set of crown jewels. So CISO actually just released some guidance that kind of references microsegmentation as it relates to zero trust. So do you generally kind of monitor CISO guidance and use like those type of frameworks and protocols in what you do?
Not particularly. Our program is loosely based off of this cybersecurity framework. Mm-hmm. And we model our program after that. But I just heard of this document 10 minutes before this interview. Shame on me.
Well, I mean, if you were in media and you were supposed to be covering security broadly, I would shame you. But I think you've got
if
bigger
I was a
problems.
Zero Networks employee, shame on me for not.
Yeah.
But I mean, this was a control we always knew that we would have to look at, and we just shied away because of the complexity.
Yeah.
And that's not an excuse for doing that.
Yeah. All right, so Nicholas, you are responsible for understanding CISO's
Yeah,
guidance.
of
So why
course.
don't you, since I also don't in-depth read it, why don't you tell us a little bit about the latest guidance from CISO on microsegmentation?
Yeah, I mean, if you read their first guidance around zero trust, they had the pillars of network, identity, applications, data, and they had microsegmentation as like the top for network. And very hard, complex, only advanced organizations can do it. And so they really dove into just that subject and wrote a whole paper about how to do a phased approach, which we at Zero Networks don't necessarily agree with. We can talk more about that later. But do a phased approach for your business. Obviously, you don't want to create business impact when you microsegment. That's people's biggest fear. But then they gave a little more guidance on why it's so important to support a zero trust architecture, and really starting with microsegmentation as a core, because it is a cornerstone of your network, is microsegment it, and then you can build up your zero trust architecture on top of that.
Yeah. So let's go into, you say you disagree a little bit.
Yeah.
Where are the areas of disagreement that you have?
Probably my biggest thing is, they said, hey, take a phased approach. And when you read it, it comes off as like, hey, this is going to be a multi-year journey that you're on. And this is why folks, especially like Israel, have shared with us, yeah, we didn't do microsegmentation because we don't have the time.
Yeah.
It's going to take us too long to actually achieve any ROI out of that. And with Zero Networks, we believe it can actually be faster, but it relies on automation. And so our platform uses automation to make this simple, and you can do a phased approach, but in a much shorter timeline.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah, I think even with zero trust, like I always say, like the zero part of it, even though it just means like don't trust, I think people like they hear zero and they think, God, I'm supposed to get to like zero problems or zero gaps in identity or zero, and I think sometimes the things we name things become very overwhelming. So yeah, and I agree. If you think that you're gonna have a 1.5 year long, 2 year, 3 year journey, and you're gonna need people and resources and all of that, I can't even get enough people to triage the alerts in my SIM, much less spend their time micro-segmenting or implementing zero trust. So, so let's talk about automation. Obviously, everybody's got an AI story. So let's talk about kind of actually, let's start with you, Israel. So when you think about AI and you think about how things are changing, as a CISO, what are your kind of top concerns in terms of how that may impact your teams and what they're responsible for handling?
So we actually embraced Gen AI and different vertical tools that we brought into the organization pretty early on. And we have special tooling to help us there in terms of detection and prevention capabilities. Obviously, there's concerns, but I look at Gen AI as it's a tech risk governance problem. It's our job as a CISO to just articulate the risk to the business, explain to them what the risks are, what potential mitigations we have in place, and ultimately they make the decision whether they want to put their data in some of these, whether it's agentic AI or LLMs, if they want to put their data there. So the only difference now with AI generally is just the speed, how fast things are changing, and the scope of data you're giving it access to. I think those are the two differentiators compared to other disruptions when we went to cloud, or when we went to e-commerce with SSL and TLS. I mean, just the scale of data that you're giving to these things and the speed of which it changes. I think that just makes a little more cause for pause and just do it thoughtfully.
Yeah, and do you think working with Zero, because you've worked together for a few years, right? Do you think you were quicker to embrace AI because you had microsegmentation in place and you can kind of contain the craziness of the agents? One
of the controls that we leaned on, certainly, yes. But going back to Nick's point about the how hard it is and complex to deploy it, I think people are also concerned, practitioners are concerned about disruption. Right? Oh, I'm going to put in a network tool that's going to block everyone from doing all this. I'm going to block my business. I'm going to block my developers. And that was not true.
Yeah. Well, that's how you end up with management interfaces exposed to the internet, because you then get an angry call from a president level person that's like, how come I can't access this? And somebody just goes in and makes it public quickly because it's a problem, right?
I mean, people
not that I've seen that at companies or anything.
Never happened.
I've never seen that in an incident response. But
that's also the reason why people don't put in blocks for DLP rules for that reason. They're just worried about upsetting the wrong person. And I think that's probably also the hesitation for microsegmentation. But if you work with a vendor that made it easy and transparent, that's all the difference you need.
Right. All right. And so, Nick, when you think about AI and you think about your customers and their biggest concerns with automation, where have you found that you can actually trust AI to do the right things, and like where you're? Because it occurs to me that there's a risk versus return, right?
Yeah.
And so at Zero, where are some of the areas that you're actually finding enough tangible value to not just implement a hype cycle.
Yeah, and with microsegmentation, it's very complex, right? Like imagine just doing all the things that you do as a human to try to microsegment. So for us, AI isn't really there for like building rules. We use a deterministic engine in the automation engine to generate those rules, but we were using AI on top of that to help enable the businesses, right? So being able to ask questions, hey, where do we see RDP in our environment, right? Like simple human questions that they can then translate into a complex query. That's where AI is really good on top of this type of data, but it's not quite ready for building rules and policies to protect the business, because we see that, it might open something up because one connection came in from the outside and maybe it shouldn't have, right?
Yeah. And Israel, when you think about going forward, what do you think you're going to need from Xero in terms of support to continue to be able to let your company innovate, play with new tools, implement new technologies without introducing additional risk?
Well, I'm actually more bullish than other practitioners in terms of allowing the vendors that you trust to do auto remediation, and then to as a stopgap measure or a way of having another set of eyes. You could do human in the loop, where you could have, maybe you do generate those rules and you just have a human approve them. Those are interesting ideas where I guess the customers can then get, or practitioners can get, the comfort that what you're generating, your models that you're using, and the the rules that you're suggesting to put in are on par with what our risk appetite, with what we want to do. But in terms of using other just general AI tools, I think that does give me more comfort to be able to start testing, iterating fast through different Gen AI type products that are out there, because they got the protections in place.
Yeah. And Nick, as you think about the next year, as we go through, what are you looking at? I mean, I guess you've just gotten some great feedback. So are those the types of areas you're looking at in terms of being able to automate remediation and things like that? Or what do you, and I always, my colleague Savannah asked this great question, if we're sitting here a year from now, what do you hope to be able to say that has changed from this year to next year? Yeah,
now that we've been around for years, we have longer customers like Israel, we're starting to learn about day two automations. Hey, what if somebody adds a new app, or hey, this new agentic AI needs to talk to that app? How do you detect that, build that rule, and open that up so you don't break the business and enable the business? So yeah, a lot of day two automation type focus over the next year. And so I would say next year we'll have even more than that. Like this is hopefully a few months from now, but yeah, in next year we'll have a whole list of things we're going to add to the capabilities.
Awesome. All right, so if I'm a CISO, CTO, and I like this concept, what's the first step I should take? How do I get in touch? What are the first things I should do?
Yeah, so call Israel. No, just kidding.
Ask him for his advice. He loves mentoring people he doesn't know.
ZeroNetworks.com, request a demo, and then 1 hour to deploy, 30 days to segment, you're done.
1 hour to deploy, 30 days to segment, you're done. So we'll put a punctuation on that.
Yeah.
Right. Nick, Israel, thank you so much for joining us. This has been fantastic. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, yeah.
All right. And for theCUBE, I'm Jackie McGuire in Las Vegas, Nevada for Black Hat 2025. Stay tuned. We've got lots of more great coverage, great guests, and interesting topics. We'll be right back.